Hey guys, what is going on? It is your boy GS Luke here with our weekly DFS livestream, this time for the Travelers Championship, my favorite time of the week, going to go over everything you need to know for this week's event, whether it's the weather, our player poll, projections, ownership, all that sort of fun stuff. So really looking forward to getting into it. And I can see a few of you already down there in chat. So we got the GOAT, Wilson Dog down there. What is going on? Hopefully you're doing well here on Wednesday. Nick Marsh says confidence is at an all-time high this week. Let's fucking go. I completely agree. Last year, this was a takedown for me. I should say a near takedown. Came in second place in the large field single entry, which last year at around this time, I wasn't playing nearly the volume that I am now. It was about half the volume, I'd say, week to week. I was playing like 100, 120 in the main $5 and a lot of those smaller single entries. So to get a bank like that gave me some confidence. So maybe Jordan Spieth will feel that confidence going back to a golf course he's won at. So I love it. Love to see it there. We got Colin James asking about Kevin Kisner. I completely agree. He's just been off his game. I'm actually not sure if I can get there this week. This would be like the perfect Kevin Kisner golf course. But with how strong that 7K range is, it's a tough one. And I really feel bad about it because I love Kevin Kisner. So hopefully he turns it around, Colin. That would be great to see. And Catch Me If You Can says, great news. Ted Potter Jr. has committed to my Thursday night men's league. That's great to hear. I know you love yourself some Ted Potter Jr., that's for sure. But let's go ahead and hop into this. First off with a look at the weather, which I guess it's important to talk about, but it's not going to be a huge factor. We're not talking about a massive split in either direction. But more importantly, on Tuesday night, it rained the entire day. So it was an extremely receptive golf course today for the practice round. That's what I heard from people that were on site. And in terms of the weather tomorrow, you can see it's going to also be humid. In fact, probably even a shower sometime in the afternoon. These greens on Thursday are going to be as receptive as humanly possible, especially considering that they're already receptive to begin with. Last year, without a lot of weather, they were hit at a 70.3% rate. And that's despite just being 5,000 square foot on average. So you're looking at a birdie fest actually becoming a little bit easier this time around. And with how wet the fairways are, I would assume that they're hit at a higher percentage as well. So I would expect it to play similar, right? Maybe a little bit easier, closer to half a stroke under par per round, something like that. But what we're used to seeing from this golf tournament is take a look at the Thursday versus Friday split. So on Thursday, it's flat the entire day. So a lot of times you'd think that that would favor the PM wave. But on Friday, it's the same exact story. It's flat for the entire day. In fact, maybe even a little bit worse in the morning. You can see 13 mile an hour wind gusts as opposed to 10 mile an hour wind gusts in the afternoon. So again, it's a marginal difference, if any, between the two waves there. So it's one of the few weeks where, at least from what we can tell right now, there's not going to be a huge difference between the two waves. But I always love to preface this every single week with the fact I always play wave stacks. I always put 10 to 15% of my lineups in either direction, where I'm playing 5 or even 6 players from the same wave in that lineup. That is just to hedge against any of these situations because we know the weathermen get it wrong. We know that this little rainstorm in the afternoon tomorrow could be a rainstorm all afternoon and be a torrential downpour for all we know, right? So the best way to handle that, if you're playing, 150 lineups especially, is to just hedge with 10, maybe even 15% of your lineups in either direction. Even if you do 15%, you still have 70% of your lineups to work with to run in those 4 2s, those 3 3s that you're looking for, and still run out an extremely balanced pool, right? And a lot of people think that allocating 15% to either direction is all that much. You're probably doing that anyways, just without knowing it when you're running your optimizer. Just making sure that you set that type of roll, or at least maybe hand build those 30 to 35 lineups that you're building. Probably something that you want to take care of early in your lineup building process. Let's hop over to the player pool and we'll hop into the chat before we do so as well. I can see quite a few of you down there, and wanted to touch on those. We have Street Pound who says, I have a strange feeling that last week's miscut was the best thing that could have happened to Tony Finau. He needed the rest. He could win this week. I think that he's coming in with the form we're looking for from the ball striking perspective. If he can find that putter, I think I agree with you. I kind of worry about that flat stick, but that's always the thing that's going to drive Tony Finau's game, right? If he goes out there and he gains with the flat stick, watch out, right? If he's even just a neutral with the flat stick, kind of similar to a Luke List, watch out, right? He's finishing in the top 10. So I always like his upside. I could see it. Wilson Dog says, how about my great-grandfather fame? Yeah, I looked him up. I see that. He was playing on tour. I wasn't able to find all that much, but that's really cool, Wilson Dog. Anytime you know somebody that's a professional golfer. Kevin Lane says, thoughts on Goddard this week? He was a late add to my pool, and honestly, I kind of like him. At least the ball striking at the U.S. Open was excellent. He gained off the tee. I believe it was like 5 strokes gained on approach over his 4 rounds. Over his last 2 rounds, it was over 3 strokes on approach. So he was trending in that right direction. I think I'm going to have a little bit of Goddard up. Now, it's not going to be anything super significant, right? It's going to be like 5 to 7 of my lineups. But I'm taking a shot on the kid, right? We've seen a lot of those young stars have success around this venue. A lot of them get a chance here. I mean, Jordan Spieth played here. I mean, he wasn't super young at that point, but Alex Smalley's playing this week. Cole Hammer's playing this week. You have Benjamin James. He's an 18-year-old amateur who's going to be playing in this field this week. I actually might be younger than that. Actually, I think he might be like 16 or 17 years old, that Benjamin James kid. So I don't know. I like Goddard up a lot because he's that class of those, up-and-coming prospects. So yeah, I'll have a little bit of Goddard up. We got Colin James who says Webb Simpson week. I think he might be worth a few looks. I don't think it's really his week because of the recent form, but it's certainly a great course for him. Hosey says, feels like a week where the big dogs struggle. We're going to talk about the strategy up top here in a second. I am really, really tempted to fade the top 3 guys. Not the entire 10K range or something like that, but specifically those top 3 players, including Rory, I have down as a core pick, or in contention of just being full out fade. So we'll talk about that here in a second. Nick says, I got some Goddard up. That's good to know. And Sam Ergel says, this is going to be a fun week. Spieth and Im are your fave plays. Well, they're up there for me too. They're up in my top 5 plays for this slate. Let's just say that, Sam. So let's talk about this stuff up top. So Rory McIlroy is still in my player pool as of right now, but I am highly considering taking him from a core pick and turning him into a fade and going down to Xander Schauffele. I just, first off, he's the highest owned play on the slate. He's 21.5% owned. He's also somebody from a skill set perspective who isn't a perfect fit. We're playing him because of that recent form, because of his pedigree. It's Rory McIlroy. He can win at any golf course. And we've seen that, right? The RBC Canadian Open, we played him there almost as an insurance policy in case he did what he did. He went out there and he proved that right. Now, that's kind of the same mindset this week. He was Rory McIlroy's number 1 in my modeling. He's number 2 in the world. He's clearly on a mission. But the more and more I've heard him speak in his press conferences, most notably what he said this morning, concerns me. He said that he's both fatigued mentally and physically. And I didn't really think about this, but they had these player meetings this week, right? The Player Advisory Council, which you wouldn't think much of, except that Rory McIlroy is the head of that council. He's had to sit through all of those board meetings, and he said as much during his interview. And I haven't really heard a lot of people latch onto this, but sitting through board meetings is an absolute hassle. And I can tell you because I've shadowed my mother, who's been to plenty of board meetings as a chief financial officer, and seen how cumbersome, boring, and mentally fatiguing they can be. It's a lot of just legal language, going through everything, making sure that everything is up to standards for the board members, right? Pretty much explaining everything to them. And the board in this case is Rory McIlroy, right? He had to sit there, listen to all these different pitches about how they want to improve the tour, so on and so forth. And that is completely fatiguing. So he didn't practice on on Monday. He had to fly to the area on Tuesday, so he didn't practice then. Played in the Pro-Am today. That is the extent of his practice for this week. And he said as soon as he got done with his interview, which was after the Pro-Am, he was going home, eating, and going to sleep. That does not sound like somebody I want to play this week. So I was on him to start the week. I'm really starting to consider him as a fade since he's the highest owned player on the slate. He's dealing with all of that. It doesn't seem like a really good plan to go and win a golf tournament, right? To just show up, play a Pro-Am, go to sleep, and wake up the next day and play at 7:30 a.m. So I'm probably fading Rory McIlroy. So it's one of those situations where it's a good thing if you're watching this live stream and you're not just watching the Core Picks video, because things changed throughout the week, right? I kind of hoped he was going to be low owned. I hoped he was going to be in that 11 to 12% range. And that's not the case. He's 21.5% projected owned, by far the highest play on the slate. So we'll have to see on that. I'll let you guys know down in the Discord the final decision on that. But very likely going to pivot off of Rory McIlroy and add Xander Schauffele to the field, which we'll talk about Xander here in a second. Let's talk about Scotty Scheffler. I am worried about the course history. First off, his first 2 starts here, pretty dog shit. Missed cut, 47th place finish. Not what you're looking for from the world number 1 player. But on top of that, he really struggles with the flat stick from time to time. You've seen that. You really got to put him on a ball striking first golf course to get him for that floor performance. And when somebody's $11,200, I want them to be able to get to that floor quite often. And frankly, I think he has a lot more risk than people expect. This is a golf course where you have to gain strokes with your putting to pretty much compete here. I mean, over the last 5 years, I believe it's maybe even more than that. If you go back even further, this is the case. The top 5 finishers always gain to the field with the flat stick. And it's not like Scotty can't go out there and do that. It's just that out of the guys up top, he's maybe the most inconsistent putter, right? You can say that Patrick Cantlay of late has been, but on these greens for his career, he's absolutely loved putting here in Cromwell, Connecticut. And historically, he's the best putter of the bunch, right? So if I'm going to have to nitpick, I'm going to nitpick about Scotty Scheffler's putting, which is probably the worst part of his game. So that's going to be what I'm going with up top. So Rory, probably a fade. Scotty Scheffler probably, well, is a fade for sure. Sam Burns, I don't like the idea of having to fade him, but this is also a golf course where he can't really utilize that off the tee play, right? That distance, that power that he's known for. The putting is a great plus for a Sam Burns, right? He's more than capable of going out there and gaining 7 to 8 strokes to the field. So that's why I actually feel the worst of these 3 guys up top about fading Sam Burns. Sam Burns is the most capable of all 3 of just going out there and breaking the slate with his putter. But I really think that's his only chance to win this week, is if he goes out there and just breaks the golf course with his putter. So I'm going to be off of him. I mean, he's at 16% owned. It's not like he's being completely overlooked. If he was coming in at like 9-10% ownership, then I would be in on the Sam Burns train, right? Because I think he has like a 15, maybe 20% chance to get close to a ceiling performance with that flat stick. He pops a lot more than other players in that category. So I don't hate the play. I don't love the play, though. That's why he's out of my pool. Guys that I know for a fact will be in my player pool, going to be Patrick Cantlay and Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth is my favorite play on the slate. It's not even close. I've bet over $500 on him to win this event. I've even added bets after the fact. Just great course fit. Last time he had the stomach bug and came back the next week, ended up finishing second at Pebble Beach. He's won here before. From a skill set perspective, his game is even better for it now than it was back in 2017. Just a lot of things pointing up for Jordan Spieth. The recent form metrics kind of speak for themselves. So I'll be there in bunches on Jordan Spieth. For Patrick Cantlay, I'm going to be there in bunches too. Talked about the course history, extremely consistent over the years. You can see top 15 finish the last 4 years. Great putting on these bent POA surfaces, which we don't see all that often. But when he's been on them, I mean, last week especially, right, gained, I believe it was 9 strokes of the flat stick. You'll take that all day. And especially if we're going to be putting on a very similar surface, maybe he can continue that momentum from week to week. And if he does that, he could very well be your champion by week's end. So love myself some Patrick Cantlay and Jordan Spieth there. I'll catch up on chat. See if you have any questions about the guys up top. We have, let's see what we got. Sanjay M actually withdrew. Interesting. We'll get to that here in a second. Does M being high owned diminish your enthusiasm on him? I had him as a bounce back candidate, but if he's close to 20%, I don't have him at 20%. I have him at 9.4%. So I don't know what ownership projections you're looking at, Ben, but I disagree with them. I have him at 9.4%. David says, I think Sanjay was a WD. Okay, so he WD'd 2 minutes ago. Okay, so obviously didn't catch that because we're on stream here. So let's talk about that. I guess that's important. So I didn't have him as super chalk. So I didn't have him at 20%. I had him at 9%. So I don't have it making as massive of an impact as, like, you know, if he was 20% owned, he would be. I'd expect more to go on the Jordan Spieth naturally. I expect a lot more to go on the Joaquin Niemann because he's $100 cheaper. People that have already built their lineups, right, they'll swap down to Joaquin Niemann and then take that $100 and spend up at another spot or just leave their lineup as is. So it's okay. It kind of sucks. I really liked Sanjay M there. Hopefully he's okay. He doesn't really withdraw very often. So if anyone knows why he withdrew, that'd be great. Maybe I hope he's not going to the Live. That would be, I actually like that he's a PGA Tour player. I don't know. There's guys that I like on the Live and then guys that I like on the PGA Tour. And I feel like Sanjay is one of the guys I kind of like on the PGA Tour, being on the tour. So I don't know. I kind of feel bummed about that, actually, if that's what's happening there. But someone go ahead and let me know what that is. So if we're not playing Sanjay, I can probably fit in Xander on his own, and I could probably still play Rory. So that's probably what's going to happen, guys. God, I don't know. Maybe I go to Sam Burns then. Okay, we'll figure this out after we get off stream, because It's going to depend on what I'm actually able to fit into my build. But Xander Schauffele is going to be in the player pool. We know that for certain now because of the Sungjae Im thing. And it's either going to be Rory McIlroy or Sam Burns that likely makes it into the player pool. So I'll let you guys know for certain later on. It depends on combinations. I do a lot of stacks with skill sets. So it's not something that I can really know without actually doing my builds. So we'll have to see what guy up top wins. It'll be one of those two for sure. Let's catch up on the questions. I bet you it's a lot of things about Sungjae Im. Yeah, we got Jason Day. We'll talk about him. I don't hate him there. We have Davis Riley question, who is a definite core play. I think the treatment that players receive at the Travelers will inspire him to greatness. He seems on a mission. If he's chalk, I will eat it. Completely in lockstep with you there. He's an extremely solid course fit. The approach play has been solid for 3 to 4 weeks at this point. And like I said, this golf course has had multiple first-time champions before. Jordan Spieth wasn't a rookie when he played here, but it was his first ever start and had that hole out against Daniel Berger, right? So maybe Davis Riley can channel some of that energy. That'd be pretty cool. Mamba asked about KH Lee. I love him on these wet golf courses. He's, for whatever reason, Byron Nelson, the last 2 years, when he's won it, it's been an extremely wet golf course. And anytime you've had a lot of weather where it's like Wells Fargo and it's raining, he's played well during those rounds. So I'm on him for that reason. I also think he's just a good skill set fit. Benny says, I agree, fading Burns this week makes me uncomfortable. Yeah, so I think that's why he might be the guy I add in, because there's that uncomfortability factor where it's like he just gain 8 strokes of the putter. And he's like one of the guys who does that like once a month. So yeah, I have a feeling he's going to end up getting in there. Benny wonders about Spieth's ownership because of him being out. And yeah, I think it'll go up like 6-7%. So maybe, probably not more than 6-7%. So he'll probably be like 20% owned, which kind of sucks. Joaquin Niemann's going to probably be like 15% owned now, at least, right? He's probably going to get at least 2%, if not a little bit more. So yeah, I think it's gonna be like 20% Jordan Spieth. I think you're gonna get like a 15% owned Joaquin Niemann, something like that, because of Sungjae Im. But you'll get a little bit more people going to somebody like Xander Schauffele, right? A few more people going to Patrick Cantlay because of it. So it's not only going to be a Jordan Spieth and Joaquin Niemann that are affected, but a majority of that effect is going to be with those two players, which is kind of unfortunate because I liked all 3 of them. You can see all 3 of them are going to be in the player pool there. So we have Bonderific who says, what's up, Luke? Finally, another live stream. Hit that like button, folks, and let's get this money. Absolutely agree. If you're in here right now, make sure you smash that like button. Wilson Dog says, I like the Jason Day. Your thoughts? We can talk about it. I don't hate Jason Day. I just kind of worry about how much he's played, right? We haven't seen him over the last 3 to 4 weeks. He's taken a little bit of time off, which you could spin one direction or the other, right? You could say that it's great that he's taken these last 2 weeks off. But even when he's played, right, 31st, 55th, 51st, I'm not excited about the play. I understand it, though, because he likes a short golf course. What's his course history around here? Let's take a look at that. We got pretty decent course history, right? 2 top 10 finishes. That's probably what you want to latch onto if you're playing him this week. But the recent form gives me a little bit of pause. So that's why I have him as a blank. He's probably not a priority for me, but I wouldn't talk you off the play. That's what I have to say about Jay Day there. Catch Me If You Can says, funny, everybody has the Goddard up boner. Yeah, I agree. He's kind of like a Thigala, right? Thigala's getting that steam early. Everyone was playing Thigala even after he kind of fell off with the form. I don't know if I don't think he's chalk though. I have him at 1.5% though. Catch Me If You Can. So, I mean, you could play like 3 to 5 lineups with Goddard up and get leverage. So I think it's worth doing in that aspect. And he says, replaced by Ryan Armour. Great. So we get a horrible player into the field. Lovely. Justin Wilson says, I wonder if he finally said screw it and went to serve his military service. That'd be interesting. I don't know if he was going to do that. He wasn't very like public about whether he was actually going to serve that. So maybe that's the case. I don't know about that. And Wilson says, Cameron Davis. I absolutely love Cameron Davis. We will talk about him a little bit later. Alrighty. Let's hop back into this 9K range and get this thing rolling. So Joaquin Niemann is going to be a little bit more of a priority now because Sungjae Im has withdrew from the field. Joaquin Niemann, I like him on soft golf courses. He's a player just like Jordan Spieth that's able to apply plenty of spin. He's going to be like 15% owned now because of that withdrawal, but I'm okay getting to it. I'm probably going to be in about 25% of my lineups, maybe 20%. I'm going to be slightly over the field. You know, if he has a solid tournament, he's not going to make or break my week, but I want to be there if he has it. Tony Finau, I worry about the putter. I don't hate the play though, right? So, you know, if you want to just take a chance on Tony Finau finding that spike putter, then by all means go ahead and do so. It's just that I trust the guys around him a lot more, like a Joaquin Niemann, who does that a lot more often. Jordan Spieth, who's one of the best putters of all time, and even somebody like a Tommy Fleetwood or a Seamus Power, who's just a little bit more consistent with that flat stick. I'd rather pivot those directions. So that's where I'm going to be going there. Keegan Bradley is a fade because of the putter. Hopefully you guys watched that fades video. It's well, it was relatively straightforward with Keegan. You know, he was our fade in that 9K range. JT up top was a fade in the 10K range because of his flat stick. And Aaron Wise, another fade because of the flat stick. So it's relatively consistent there with those three players. Tommy Fleetwood, I like the fact that he can bounce back. He's going to be super low owned, just 5.7% owned. Still gaining across the board with his shots gained categories. Really just a solid player. Gaining on approach like we're looking for, gaining with the flat stick, and even over the last 50 measured rounds. So if we give him a relatively large sample size here, still gaining across all four categories. So I think he's a little bit underrated. You can actually argue that he's a little bit underpriced, and he should be a little bit lower owned than expected because of the fact people felt burned by him, right? You know, the whole emotional aspect people bring to DFS at times, which you can take advantage of. It's one of the bigger edges that we have out here from week to week. Seamus Power, I've gone back and forth on him about 5 times at this point. He was a fade to start this week. I thought he was going to be super mega chalk. Throughout the week, the ownership numbers just kept creeping up on him. But as I looked into him more and more, you know, to try and find reasons to fade Seamus Power, I just kept finding more reasons to play him, which was just unfortunate because a lot of the narrative is about his major championship success. Right? He's been that surprise name in the 3 majors to make the cut each time. Has also been in contention in all 3 golf tournaments. I shouldn't say contention. That might be a little bit overblowing it, but in the top 20 of most of these majors. Impressive, right, for the young kid out there. So $9,100. I like the skill set fit. He's played well on short golf courses. I mean, the Sony Open, he was able to show up early in the year. And if you take a look at some of his recent form, you can see on some of these short golf courses has gone on to quite a run. So PGA Championship, top 10 finish, relatively short golf course. Soft golf course, Byron Nelson, top 20 finish. And then over, if you go back a little bit further, just a couple other golf tournaments where less than 7,100 yards, less than 7,200 yards, he's gaining over 2 strokes to the field in those events. So, and that's over the last year, right? It's not over like 2-3 years, which I'd hope for a larger sample size, but he also hasn't had his core card for that long, right? He had to earn it by winning the Barbasol, whatever it was last year. So, like Seamus Power, yeah, the Barbasol was one of those short golf courses too. It was, I believe it's like a 6,900-yard golf course. So where he actually has a win at this point, classifies as one of those courses. So we have HV3. I like him at these short positional tracks. He's played well at Sedgefield, Wyndham Championship. So I like that type of comp. The recent form metrics have been pretty decent too. I mean, outside of last week's missed cut, has been pretty solid, gaining over 3/4 of a stroke per round on approach, gaining across all 4 categories. And his one weakness is off the tee. And you're talking about a 6,800-yard golf course. So I like the fact that he's super low owned. I have him at 6.5%. So I'll be getting there in bunches. The fact that Davis Riley is only 13.9%, great. I hope that he's that low owned. I have a feeling he comes in higher owned than that, but we'll have to see. As of right now, that's what my algorithm has him at. Vito Pereira, probably a case of opportunity cost. Somebody I would love to have in my player pool, but just guys I'd like a little bit more, like a Davis Riley. I love myself some HV3. Even Brian Harmon, who I thought was going to be mega chalk, like 20-25% owned. I have him at just 13.1% right now. So that is a number I am comfortable on getting over, something in that like 25. Yeah, probably right around that 25% mark there. Webb Simpson at $8,500. I like getting some of him in my pool. He's only $6,300. He's not my favorite play on the slate, but at these short courses, you know, he's made a living, right? Think about the RBC Heritage. Think about Sedgefield there for the Wyndham Championship. Multiple wins at those venues. RSM Classic, another short golf course that he's had plenty of success at. Mark Leishman, I have at 12.3%, which is surprising. I thought he'd be higher owned than that. But I love the skill set fit. And even though the shots gained haven't been all that favorable for Mark Leishman, I think that he has some upside here. So if he's going to only be 12% because of some of that recent form, I'm okay with it because last performance, right, just last week, looked a lot better. Top 15 finish at a major championship. So clearly, maybe didn't have his A game last week, but at least something in that B to B plus range to get a top 10 or top 15 at a major championship. Moving down to the bottom of the 8K range, Keith Mitchell at $8,200. I'd see worse plays. He's a high upside play. He's played well at TPC Twin Cities, which is one of the comp courses I'm looking at. So that's why he's in the pool there. High upside GPP play. Denny McCarthy at $8,300. I'm off of it. He's not nearly as chalky as I would have thought. Early in the week, there was a lot of talk about Denny McCarthy. I was getting a lot of questions about him, but it seems like people have cooled down on the fella. So if you want to play him this week, I think it's a lot more reasonable now that he's only 13.4% owned. But maybe all the casual slappies that are entering the $5 GPP or the $15 GPP this week play Denny McCarthy. But I don't think a lot of hardcore DFS players are going to. I think a lot of them are going to pivot off of that to guys around him. We talked about Jay Day. I don't hate him. Jason Kokrak. He always seems to have a knack for playing well at short golf courses. One at Colonial, back at Shadow Creek, it wasn't the longest golf course. He had some success there. He has another win at a short golf course. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but all three of his wins were at these like shorter than average golf courses, which for somebody with his power is a little bit counterintuitive. Another player like that is Johnny Vegas here at $7,500. They play well at these short tracks for whatever reason, and that's despite being unbelievably long off the tee. So I like getting to those guys that are a little bit unconventional at these shorter tracks. Before we hop into the 7K range, I will catch up on chat, though, so let's do that. Catch Me If You Can says, going to my favorite DK golfer for your gutter play. After 10 years, Kelly Craft's game is peaking. Yeah, finally, after 10 years. I'm glad that you added that in there because the guy has been around for a while, but he actually looks pretty decent of late. So I think you could do crazier things. Antonio says, yo, Luke, Rory just said in his interview that he's fatigued. Thoughts on that? So yeah, if you back up about 10 minutes when I start going through the player pool, I give you my exact thoughts on that. I talk about how he said he was fatigued mentally and physically. So I am worried about it. He probably is coming out of my player pool. But for full thoughts on that, make sure you scroll back a little bit. Street Pound says, I've been hearing a narrative about the course favoring left-handed players, such as past winners Phil Mickelson and Bubba Watson. I've heard that too, but over the last 4 to 5 years, we only had one lefty win, and that was Bubba Watson. So I'm not sure how much merit there is to that. But who knows, right? I mean, you've had 2 winners that are lefties win. I mean, Riviera, you've had Phil Mickelson, also Bubba Watson win multiple times. But you don't necessarily get that same narrative there, right? So maybe it's just because they're great players that happen to be lefty that won there. I'm not using it too much, if that answers your question. Mirka Mill says, how do you feel about Jason Kokrak? Hopefully that answers your question. Love him there. Cloudsy says, what's Cantlay's ownership? I have him at 19% right now. So nothing crazy. He's towards the top of the ownership board, but he's not the most chalky play. Bonderific says, how many players in your 20 max pools? I'm not playing any 20 max this week. I usually only do that for showdowns. But if I was playing 20 lineups, I'd probably have like 20, 25 players in my pool. And Antonio says, thoughts on Sam Burns top 10 at plus 170. Plus 170. So I'd probably want 200 or more. Like something like plus 200, plus 220, something in that range. It's not a horrible bet, Antonio. I'd have to actually run the numbers to give you a concrete answer on that. It's hard to just tell you off the top of my head, but I don't know. I'd much rather go after long shots for the top 10 market, guys that are like more in the 7K range here, like perhaps KH Lee, something like that, where you're going to get at least plus 350, right? If not longer odds than that for some of the players in this range. Whereas there's a little bit of risk there, right? Plus 170, you're not laying all that much juice, right? You're only winning 1.7 units for putting down a unit. I'd much rather try and take shots on some of the guys further down the board. That's at least my strategy with it. Let's go ahead and move on with the 7K range here now. Love the Zane Hoot. We talked about him early in the week. More of a short game specialist, can gain in bunches with the flat stick. So I'm certainly getting there. I'm at just 6.7% owned. So is the low owned leverage play I expected. 9.8% on Maverick McNeely. Perhaps a little bit higher than I was hoping for. I was hoping with this recent form that people would be scared to get there, but it seems like people are willing to give him a shot. Hasn't played in 3 weeks, missed cut at the Schwab, made the cut at the Byron Nelson and PGA, but it wasn't anything impressive. I'll be getting there in hopes that he shows the form that he did in the early part of this year, but I'm not going to have anything crazy, at most 20%, maybe something in that 18, 17% range there for McNeely. Harris English, I still worry about the hip injury. He hasn't been playing that much golf. Cage Lee, I could definitely get there. He loves himself those wet golf courses. So I talked about that before. At $7,600, you could do crazier things. Siwoo Kim, I like him there at $7,600. He's not really coming in with the form we're looking for. So if we take a look at his recent finishes, you'll get an idea of why he's lower owned. He's also lower priced here. Missed cut. Top 15 at the Memorial was nice, but didn't really do anything at the PGA. Missed cut at the Byron Nelson. Didn't really do anything at the Wells Fargo Championship or the RBC Heritage. But the one thing that he loves are these short positional courses. I mean, there's a video of him out there saying, "You got to play me at the Wyndham Championship." I forget what content creator it is. Maybe it was the Tour Junkies that put it out there. But he likes these short positional tracks, right? So I like him at $7,600. Players Championship comes to mind, right? Golf course, we got to be accurate off the tee, have to be precise into greens, and you got to game with the flat stick, right? And that's kind of the X factor for Siwoo, is he's either going to have it with the putter or he's going to be a huge whiff, big swing and a miss with that flat stick. So he's a volatile play. Don't go crazy on Siwoo Kim. Maybe play 20, 25%. You're feeling frisky this week, but I'll be there. In this range in general, by the way, towards the middle of the 7K range, I love it. You can see there's a lot of yeses here, not many fades. I'm going to be putting my flag down here. Just not really anyone I see voiding, right? Even a guy like Kevin Kisner at 3.2%. If there was going to be anybody who had to force his way out of my pool, it's probably Kevin Kisner, but I still like his skill set fit. He hasn't been playing well of late, so hopefully he cracks through. We talked about Cam Davis and Johnny Vegas. I like both of them in bunches. Aaron Rye, he's played well at shorter tracks. He's not really the explosive player you're looking for off the tee. A little bit more of a positional guy, so I could see it at 7,400. Tringale, another player who flourishes at these shorter tracks. And a lot of the guys that fit the golf course are here in the 7K range. And a lot of them are coming in with form. You can see top 20 fit for Lahiri. All these guys are top 35 or top 40 fits at this golf course. And that's what I'm looking to play this week. Is I'm a skill set guy, excuse me. A little bit of a tongue twister there, over a recent form guy, right? Recent form matters. I try to marry the two when possible, but when I'm taking shots on players, I'm much more willing to look at their actual fit at a venue rather than their recent form metrics, which is kind of different than a lot of other people in the industry, right? A lot of other people, will look at recent form, hope that they ride that heater, that sort of thing, which is great. But, you got to zig when other people zag, right? You got to have your strategy here in DFS. And if you can get the fit right, that's the other aspect to it, right? You have to be able to break down a golf course and really be able to get a feel for them. Not everyone can do that, right? It's a difficult thing to do. It takes me a lot of time. I do a lot of stat modeling, right? I don't just rely on intuition to do that sort of thing. A lot of correlation modeling that I'm running behind the scenes. I, talk about quite often on my videos. That's how I'm able to do this sort of thing. When I go, okay, I'm looking for guys that are precise off the tee. It's not just because I'm making that up, right? It's because that's what the numbers are panning out. The numbers also love putting this week, right? So that's why I'm trying to target some of these shorter hitters that have to make up for it with their putting. Most notably like a Kevin Kisner, right? That's why I'm taking a shot on him, even though he's probably more expensive than he should be. And he's still low owned though, right? That's the other aspect, right? He's also low owned. So we can take shots on those type of players. Talked about Lahiri. I love him this week. I thought he was going to be chalk. On Monday, I identified a couple people here I thought would be chalk. One of them was Lahiri. So I thought I was going to have to fade him, but just at 5.7%. That's great to see. Who else did we think was going to be chalk? I thought that Siwoo might be chalk. He's only 6.7%. I thought Steele would be chalk. He is chalk. So that's why we're fading him there. And I thought Todd would be chalk. And Todd is chalk at 12.3%. So you can see a lot of those players that ended up becoming the chalk were fades. Even Joel Damon at 13%. I'm not all that excited to get there, but the guys I was pleasantly surprised by, like Arnaban Lahiri, I'm more than willing to get to. I'm more than willing to embrace them after a few bad weeks, just because the rest of the industry overreacts to a few box scores. Let's hop into the questions. Before we move back into the 6K range here, we got Planet Warrior. He says, "Hey, Luke, I hope you're feeling well. I am feeling a lot better than the last 2 weeks." And Lahiri says, "Way underpriced." Completely agree with Lahiri there. I kind of just talked about it there. I thought he was going to be chalk. The reason why I thought he was going to be chalk is because he models so well, despite being, what is he, $7,300, something like that. Yeah, $7,300. He could be an 8K golfer, and I think he would still be worthy of being like 6-7% owned. So definitely agree with you there, Planet Warrior. And he said seems disrespected at 150 to 1. I don't know if I'd bet him outright, but what is his top 10 number? He'd be like a perfect candidate for taking somebody in the top 10 market. Chris Palmer asks about Brendan Todd in long for cash. In cash, I like them. I don't love Brendan Todd for GPPs because I don't think he really has the upside I'm looking for. But for the top 10 market for cash, I like it. And Adam Long, I definitely like too. From a skill set perspective, Adam Long fits the golf course well. He's been ball striking it over his last 24 rounds. Which is kind of the X factor for him. He's not always the best ball striker. That is Adam Long. And, to catch him in one of those stretches is something that I usually try to ride. So, yeah, I like both of them for cash. Antonio says, am I concerned about CT Pan's injury? I'm not sure if it's an injury. I'm not really, he's been playing, he's been taking weeks off, that sort of thing. I'm not going crazy on my ownership. I think he'll withdraw before lock if he's going to do that sort of thing. He's tended to do that over the last few months. So if you're playing CT Pan, I'm playing like 12% tomorrow. Make sure you wake up before lock. That's what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm going to make sure I wake up, actually get him in the player pool. I'm not sure if he's playing in the morning or the afternoon. If he's playing in the morning wave, that would be advantageous. A little bit more likely for us to get the WD news if that's going to be the case. But yeah, I'm going to be there on CT Pan. Hopefully that lowers his ownership, to be honest with you, because from the fit, he's like a perfect skill set fit here. Absolutely love him there. What else do we got? We got right now you have Spieth, Riley, Harmon, Todd, Steele, and Long. So I'm okay with Steele and cash because of how chalky he is. Yeah, I'm okay with that. It's an extremely balanced build. If you were going to change anybody, I might spend up from somebody like a Brendan Steele or a Brendan Todd and take somebody in that 8K range, and then perhaps spend down with the other one to the bottom of the 7K range. Just make it a little bit more polarized. But I like how balanced you are there. That's typically my strategy, as you know. So I like that, Chris. It makes sense to me. Craig says, what do you think about Lucas Glover, the last golfer in? I worry about his putting. I like him at short golf courses, though. So that's why he's down as a blank. Don't hate him this week, but you also got to be able to game with the flat stick. We've seen that historically around this venue. And if there's one thing that Lucas Glover tends to struggle at, it is on the green. So I'm not a huge fan there, Craig, but I'm not against it. Says Siwoo Kim for Wilson Dog. I agree. I definitely like Siwoo Kim. Mark Green says had 2 each ways this week, got 50 to 1 for Leishman. Nice. And also showed quite a bit of form. And I agree. Yeah, top 15 finish. I think he's a great fit at this golf course. And then you're sticking with Davis Riley. Definitely agree with you on Davis Riley too. But the question time before he gets his first win. Yeah, I think it might be time to hammer Davis Riley. I think it might be the week for him this week. Antonio says, is this week going to be a birdie fest or not? If it is, are you playing Hostler? I think it's going to be a birdie fest. Like I said, I think it's going to play like half a stroke under par. Probably going to get like a 16 to 18 under par winner. So it's not going to be 20 under plus. It's not going to be Byron Nelson easy or Century Tournament of Champions easy, but it's going to be easier than your average menu around here. So I don't know if I'd call it a birdie fest, but it is going to be an easy golf course. And I am playing Hostler. It's not really because it's a birdie fest that I'm playing Bo Hostler. It's more that the comp courses I'm looking at make sense. Pebble Beach is a comp that I'm looking at. Taking a look at courses under 7,200 yards, he gains over a stroke per round. I like those stats for Big Bo. The recent form isn't great. So if we take a look at those, you'll see that, he's kind of just marginally gaining across all 4 categories. But I'll have him in the player pool. He'll be there. Just nothing crazy on him. Something in that 10, maybe 12% range there. Planet Warrior says, thoughts on Scheffler and McIlroy fatigue, worth a sprinkle still? I'm not going to be there on either one. I think they're going to be slightly fatigued. The U.S. Open takes a lot out of you. From Scotty Scheffler's putting, I worry about. And with Rory McIlroy, he's played 1 practice round this week. If you go back to the beginning of the stream, I talk about it in extensive detail, but I really worry about him not practicing much this week. The mental fatigue from sitting through board meetings for the Player Advisory Council, and then the physical fatigue of just getting into town Tuesday night, playing a practice round today and just going home and crashing. That's what he said he was going to do. And they were playing, this seems like a silly reason to fade someone, and I hope he wins just to prove me wrong here, but they were playing the national anthem in the background, and he couldn't even listen to the questions being answered because he was that distracted. He seemed a little bit checked out, to say the very least. And yeah, I talked about Siwoo Kim. Yeah, I like Siwoo Kim. Antonio Esparza said thoughts on Lipsky and Putnam. I have both. Well, I don't have Putnam in the pool. I have him down as a blank, but I like Lipsky this week. So we'll talk about that. All right, let's move down to the 7K range. And yeah, you guys don't have to ask questions twice. I will get to them. No worries. I promise you. I'm one of the few guys that will answer pretty much every question down in chat. Unless it's a clown question. Unless it's a question that isn't worth answering. So hit the gala at $7,300. Always like to take his upside. He's a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. Just high upside plays, got the putting upside we're looking for. Explosive ball striker from time to time, but we don't really need that this week. We just need somebody who's going to be aggressive, make birdies, take advantage of the receptive conditions, and I trust him to go out there and try to do so. Cam Champ, I love the fact that he's played well at TPC Twin Cities, which is the #1 comp course on Data Golf this week, and a lot of their analysis is done with correlation stuff, a lot of similar stuff that I'm doing with my analysis. And I really tend to trust them a lot more than other sources when it comes to that data. And they're really bullish on that connection between Twin Cities and what we're getting this week. Cameron Champ has won at that event. You have Matthew Wolf, who's played extremely well there. I'm taking pure flyers on them because you're looking at sub 3% ownership on both of those plays. And they're a ticking time bomb waiting to go off too, right? Cameron Champ can gain 5-6 strokes with a flat stick from round to round, and he can gain a bunch with the off the tee play too. So even though this is a short golf course, I mean, realistically, Cam Champ could drive 2 of the par 4s. He's going to get on both of the par 5s easily with mid irons into both of those greens. I think he's a higher upside play than people are giving him credit for. Getting back to past champion Kevin Streelman, not really so much Ches Reavie. I think that at this point of his career, Streelman's just a little bit of a better player than Reavie. Don't like the putting from Doug Yim. I don't think he gets it done nearly enough. Lanto Griffin, an extremely high upside putter, will pop, gain 6-7 strokes every once in a while there. He gained like 12 strokes putting in an event at one point. I think it was last year in 2021. That should just tell you the type of madman that Lanto Griffin can be. Sepp Straka has played well at positional courses. So we saw that at the Honda Classic where he obviously won. But even since then, a few other top 25s at courses under 7,100 yards. Adam Long, we talked about. I love the skill set fit. I love the fact that he's gaining with the ball striking stats over his last 24 rounds, close to half a stroke per round off the tee and on approach. Alex Smalley played well at Corrales, has played well over the last month, a few top 25s. Just a consistent play, one of the bright stars in this rookie class that I think we're going to see for quite some time. So if we're getting him at a cheap price tag of $7,000, just 2.6% owned, I'm willing to take him, even if it hasn't been flashy, right? He hasn't been like Cam Young or Davis Riley posting these top 10s every week, but top 25 at the Canadian, pretty decent. Top 10 at the Mexico Open, almost a top 25 at the Charles Schwab, another comp course. I mean, I'll take that. That's pretty decent for this young kid, and he's being slept on, right, compared to these other prospects. So I'm certainly going to be getting to some Alex Smalley. I could see a few lineups with JJ Spawn. Obviously, had the win. He's kind of cooled down since that point, isn't nearly hitting the ball as well. So the shots gain metrics, right, he's still gaining on approach, gaining off the tee, just has got to find that putter. And we're starting to get to the range where you're not going to get perfect course fits, right? The 7K range, there's a reason why I'm hammering it as hard as I am there. But the 6K range, you're going to have to take shots on guys. So I'm taking a shot on JJ Spawn's putter, but I'm much more willing to take shots on putters in the 6K range than I am up there in the 9 and 10K range, right? The guys that are expensive, that you're going to allocate 30, 40% of your lineups to, because it's not really an easy thing to do, right? Whereas I'm playing like maybe 10% JJ Spawn at the very most. If he goes out there and has his usual week with the putter, maybe just makes the cut, finishes in the top 30, it's not going to kill me this week, right? It's not going to win me the GPP, but I'm probably still going to be able to cash those lineups come the end of the week. So I like him there at $7,000. I'm going to take a few shots and hope that he finds that putting upside. We'll catch up on a few of the questions in chat here. So 1 second. Let's see what we got here. Manny says, I'm not sure if you've mentioned him already, but I'm ready for Brian Arman to F me over. It happens every time I play him. I feel that too, but he's a consistent player. So take solace in that the numbers say that he's consistent, should be able to make the cut here, but I agree. It seems like everybody has that player that every time they specifically play them, they end up flopping. I know one of our members down in the Discord talks about DJ screwing him over all the time. So, dollar bill, and you know who you are out there. You need talking about DJ out there, but everyone has that guy. For me, that's Brian Stewart. Every time I play Brian Stewart, he flops. So I refuse to play Brian Stewart. Cloudsy asked about Tringale's ownership. I have Tringale at 8.1%. So he's getting up there. He's getting close to 10%, but nothing crazy Cloudsy. Benny Levine says, is there a golfer you're almost allergic to rostering? Brian Stewart hit the nail on the head right there. Glad I'm talked about it. In 2 years, I never get to Webb Simpson or Lucas Glover. I pretend they don't exist. Yeah, I pretend Stewart doesn't exist because every time I play him, he flops. But more importantly, he's the most annoying golfer to watch on the PGA Tour. Whether you're in person watching on TV, he takes like a minute and a half to hit the ball. And I'm not talking with his routine. I'm talking about once he gets over the golf ball. He will sit there and waggle for literally like 30 seconds to a minute, sometimes longer. And he, backs off the golf ball more than anyone you can imagine. So I'm allergic to playing Brian Stewart because I hate him. Antonio Esparza says FanDuel has Harmon minus 152 over Day plus 120. What are my thoughts on that? Laying minus 150 in a matchup against Jason Day, I'm not sure I could really do that. So I'd probably avoid that. That would be a fade for me, Antonio. I wouldn't take one side or the other. But last one, we have Wise minus 142 over Riley. I would take the Riley plus 112 side. So obviously, I think his putting's a little bit more consistent than in Aaron Wise. And the ball striking over the last 3 or 4 events might actually favor Davis Riley there. So I would go that direction. Planet Warrior says, any love for Damon? So I'm not a huge taker on that, right? He was $6,600. He was super low owned last week. Now he's towards the top of the 7K range, and now he's 13% owned, right? So I liked him last week because he was a good flyer pick, but he was a flyer pick, and he still is that flyer pick. He's inconsistent at the very best. So my rule with those type of players, and I think Siwoo Kim would fit that same type of mold, is when they're expensive and they're chalky, I fade them. When they're low owned and they're pivot plays, I make that pivot. So I'm going to be off of them, Planet Warrior. That's my take on that one. Chris Palmer says, do you like McNeely over Brendan Steele? I would probably take Steele in cash still. Like, I don't think Steele's going to miss the cut. I mean, based on how he's playing, right? He's one of the better modeling picks this week. I just worry about how highly owned he is for GPP. So I don't think you have to make that pivot. Doesn't make sense. My brother thinks Rory wins by 15. That's my brother, by the way. So yeah, sure. We'll see about that for us. You can bet on that if you want. I'll give you odds. Wilson Dog says, I always like the healthy players of the PGA because that means that that they have to play today. Yes. You want them to be healthy. That's for sure. Ray Floor says, is Svensson too high for you? Not really. I have him at 6.2%. I'm going to play like 10%. So I'm not going to take like 15 to 20. I'm not going to go crazy on it. But yeah, he's a little bit higher owned than you'd expect, but it's deservingly so. He's got the good comp course history, and he's also coming in for some pretty decent form too. So I think it's well warranted. And Craig says, I remember watching Harris English win this event last year in an 8-hole playoff. I'm taking him again. Yeah, you got to remember, though, he's coming in off injury, though. So, he had the hip injury. He's played a few times. He wasn't horrible, but it's a different situation. He was like in form last year. He was in contention almost every single week at that point. And my brother says 30,000 to win one. Sure, yeah, I'll give you the win by 15 for that. That's for sure. And Chris says your cash games are against one person, your brother. Yeah, maybe I need to play Forbes in a cash game, and he absolutely has to play Rory McIlroy. I'd be okay with that. That'd be a good way to do that bet. And Planet Warrior says, I missed the beginning of the stream. Did you discuss outrights? I'll talk about that at the end if we have time towards the end. And Antonio says, I'm ready to be let down by Keegan and Buckley. Yeah, I won't be there with you. I'm going to be off of both those guys. A little bit too inconsistent for me. But let's talk about the 6K range, guys. We have another 12, 15 minutes before I'm going to cut this off. So let's talk about the 6K range. Like Adam Svensson, Russell Knox, I'm taking a few shots on. He has elite course history. Talked about Bo Hostler. I think he's a high upside play at these short positional tracks. Stuart Sink, I will have in the player pool at $7,000. Another player who's played well at short tracks. In fact, both of his wins last year were at courses under 7, I believe 7,100 yards was the cutoff for that. Moving down past Svensson, who I like, Smotherman, always going to get a little bit of an investment from me. He's top 30. He's number 27 on tour right now in shots gained off the tee. He's number 33 in shots gained approach in all of the PGA Tour this year. So he's a stud waiting to happen. He's going to go out there and gain strokes punting 1 week and put himself into contention. I guarantee you. Matthew Wolf, I like the TPC Twin Cities connection. Zach Johnson loves his wedges, loves a short golf course. So he's 0.4% owned. pretty easy to get leverage there. David Lipsky at $6,700. I will be playing. I think he's just a little bit mispriced. I like myself some Matt Wallace, also Patton Kizzire. Kizzire is not a short player, but tends to succeed at positional venues for whatever reason. Last year's playoff participant would have been Kramer Hickok against Harris English. So if you want to get there because of the course history, I get it, but I won't be there myself. He's been in some pretty dreadful form. Wyndham Clark, I just don't think it's his golf course here. He's popped for us a few times of late, but I'm jumping off the bandwagon. Adam Schenk is gaining across the board with his shots gained. So that is amazing to see from somebody in the 6K range. Kind of similar to a JT Poston, who's doing that same thing. So both of those plays going to be in the pool for me. Carlos Ortiz, a pure flyer play. He's won on the PGA Tour before. He's an extremely volatile player. Just has been volatile in that negative direction for quite some time. So you're hoping that he snaps out of it, but he's super cheap, going to be marginally owned. Take him in 4 to 5 lineups and you have leverage. So I don't hate that all that much. I'll be off of James Hahn and Charlie Hoffman. No, thank you. Garrett Higo, he won at the Palmetto Championship, which is a course that I'm also looking at as a comp. So I like his upside. He's a winner internationally as well, so has shown that ability to get to that ceiling of performance. Higley Biota, I believe, played well here last year. Also, good at these positional golf courses, taking shots on Schwab, Lashley, and Sabatini. Kind of fit that same mold, a little bit more of precision over power guys. Grayson Sigg fits that same type of mold too. He's also 0.5% owned. Pierre Malnati and Duncan. You can see a theme with the players down low. It's the guys that can putt, the guys that are going to hit fairways that aren't really affected by the long golf course. Because if there's a time to take shots on the guys that don't have that firepower, it's this week on a 6,800-yard golf course, right? The reason why Malnati, Duncan, Sigg, Sabatini, Lashley, all of these guys are typically in the 6K range is because they hit the ball like 290. They can't get it out there 300 yards. They need like everything to go right to have success on long golf courses. This week, it's like perfectly suited for their game. Just play their game, make some putts this week, and they could crack that top 5 to top 10. So I'm taking a lot more shots on these type of players down low. I am on the Goddard bandwagon. They're at 1.5% owned. I'm going to have them in like 3 to 4 lineups. Brandon Wu, I like. Brandon Wu looked really solid the last few months. I'm taking the big rig at 1.4%. Big old Harry Higgs there. He will be in the player pool. Robert Streb. I'm a sucker for playing Robert Streb at $6,300. Brant Snedeker, I seem to be a little bit of a sucker there too, but one of the better putters that we've ever seen on tour. So definitely worth a few looks. We've got Sung Kang. Sung Kang loves himself an easy golf course. We've seen that come to fruition before. So I like him at $6,100. And even at the bare minimum, I've got Richie Rowensky because of that TPC Twin Cities crossover. And I also have Patrick Flavin, who is now Monday qualified and will be playing in his 8th PGA Tour event this year. That's ridiculous. To Monday qualify that many times shows just how much talent this kid has. He's reminding me of the run that Patrick Reed went on when he was making all of those Monday qualifications. And I think he's going to not qualify. I think he's going to contend here at some point. So I'm going to be there at $6,000. We've seen crazier things happen. Guys like a Corey Connors go out there and win as a Monday qualifier. So I'm taking shots on pretty much all of the guys down here in the 6K range. We'll wrap it up with some questions, and then we'll hop on out of here. So let's go ahead and catch up on to them. We got, what do we got? Hi, Luke's brother. Saying hi to my brother there. Manny Jackson says, do you like him this week or love him this week? He actually just withdrew, Manny. So make sure you take a look at that. He's not playing this week anymore. Forbes says, when Rory wins, I'm capping this. Okay, that's fine. We'll see. Justin Wilson says, if you play him, you'll lose. Yeah, exactly. He withdrew. Antonio says, can you be wild off the tee this week and still be successful, or do you need to be accurate? You need to be accurate. And the thing is, a lot of the wild drivers are probably going to club down this week because of how tight it is. The rough is 4-inch fescue grass. It's 4-inch bluegrass at a few places too. You do not want to be in that stuff, Antonio. So you can't be extremely wild off the tee. But the one caveat is the guys that are wild probably going to hit a lot more irons off the tee, a lot more 3-woods, that sort of thing, where they're getting less dispersion from left to right. So you'll have to see about that, Antonio. I would try to target accurate drivers. That's something that I'm looking at this week. Justin Wilson says Lee Biota is definitely interesting with the lefty success. Yeah, I also think that his putting is going to pay him huge dividends. Wilson Dog says, hey, Luke, make sure to tell your brother about my great-grandfather. I will. Chris Palmer says, is long your favorite cash play with 7K left for a last guy in? I think it makes sense for me. If I go to 7K, just to double check for you. Let's see, we got long to work from. Yeah, I like long over Smalley. I like long over JJ Spawn. Yeah, that would be the direction I would go. I wouldn't pivot down to a Svensson. I wouldn't pivot down to a Russell Knox. Long is coming in with the ball striking form. He's top 20 in recent form ranking, top 25 total model ranking. That's what I'm looking for in cash. So, yeah, I would stick with him there. That's for sure. Manny says, I'm glad I've tuned in. Yep, that's for sure. And Antonio says, thoughts on Sloan and Norlander. So Norlander plays well at short courses. So I'm assuming that's probably what's pointing you to playing Norlander. So I'm not against it. I just hate the guy. He's one of the guys I kind of refuse to play. And then Roger Sloan. How cheap is Sloan this week? That's the question. $6,300. I think you can do crazier things because he does prefer these positional golf courses. I'm not going to be there myself because the recent form, I mean, you can see he's number 140, right? There's not that many players worse than him in the field when it comes to how he's been playing, but he's done crazier things in the past. We have somebody, wow, somebody saying something horrible in chat. Well, you get banned. There you go. Planet Warrior says fave long shots. We'll talk about them. So it's the guys here in the 6K range, right? I wouldn't bet these guys outright. But in terms of just straight long shots, flyers, Sung Kang down there, Richie Wierenski, right? Guys that are down here at $6,000, I think have a good chance to go out there and make the cut. And we're talking about with realistic win equity, right? I think you got to go to the 7K range because of how strong the top of the board is. To beat somebody like a Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, I mean, Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay, right? One of those guys is going to have their A game. To beat them, you got to be a pretty solid course fit, pretty solid player. So maybe Cameron Champ at $7,200 might be worth a few looks. Going up here, somebody like Arnaban Lahiri might be worth a few looks as a pure long shot. I know he was like 150 to 1. That's pretty solid value on him. Now, I didn't get there myself, but I could see it. I didn't bet any long shots this week. So if you saw the outrights video, you'll see that I was mostly focusing on that mid-tier range. There's a lot of guys here, like a Mark Leishman I was considering betting this week. Already put a huge outright onto Jordan Spieth. So I'm a little bit more top heavy this week than I like being in the past, but there's a few long shots I'd take, mostly down here in the 7K range, like a Lahiri. We talked about Cameron Champ a little bit. You might take him from an outright perspective. Cameron Davis, I believe he's at least 100 to 1. You could consider that. Siwoo Kim might be somebody to take a look at. Christian Bezainhout at $7,800, another guy you might want to consider. I wouldn't go crazy with the long shots, though. I'm going to go down to like 200 to 300 to 1. Let's move down a little bit further. You said your bro might be right. I don't know about that. If you watch the beginning of the stream, you'll hear about the fatigue factor. I was on Rory to start the week, but I'm not on him now, so you might want to listen to that. You got to ban this guy. Block user. There we go. Alrighty. So Chris Palmer says, "Oh, Knox, who's who I was looking at." Yeah, I don't think you have to make that pivot, but I think Long and Knox are pretty solid for cash. Either direction you go. Justin Wilson says some people lead with sad lives. Yeah, completely agree. That guy got banned. Why do people do that? It's just like kind of sad. Chris Palmer says, is Mansell in the field again this week? Hopefully not. I don't think he is. And Antonio says, last one, thoughts on Lee and Trainer. Which Lee? Is it Danny Lee that you're talking about? I know who you're talking about with Trainer, though. Martin Trainer. I don't hate Trainer. I don't know if you saw him down as a blank here. I was almost close to using him as a yes because when he shows up, it's at these short tracks, these easy tracks. But it's Martin Trainer we're talking about, right? Even when he got that lead, he completely choked it away. So I'm not going to be there, but I think you could be a lot crazier than me going to somebody like a Martin Trainer. But which Lee were you talking about? Danny Lee. Okay, cool. So let's go over there. I got to look at his shots gain metrics, to be quite frank. I am not that familiar with how he's been playing. Hey, he's been gaining with the ball striking. I could get to him. Honestly, I'm not going to have him in my pool, but I could definitely see that. Gaining a quarter of a stroke on approach. He's gaining off the tee. The putting isn't anything crazy. He's losing about a quarter of a stroke per round. So obviously needs that to go out there and finish in the top 10 this week. But he does that like once or twice a month, something like that. I've seen crazier things happen. I could go with it. And Andras says, do you still like CT Pan? I do. Definitely still have him in the player pool. And Benny Levine says, where do they get their stones big enough to give Luke Guff? Yeah, no idea, boss. No idea why they came in here and did that. Just easy ban. So let's go ahead and end the stream at that, guys. That's all I've got here for this week. I appreciate everyone who stopped by. If you are watching this on replay and you have any questions that I wasn't able to touch on stream, feel free to go ahead and toss them down below. But we will be doing some showdown content throughout the weekend. So for rounds 2 through 4, make sure to check that out. And of course, our regular prize picks content. So a lot to come. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you haven't already. And before you hop on out of here, smash that like button. Make sure you give it a friendly little tap on the back. And I'll see you guys next time.